extend my thank yous, my heartfelt thank yous for each one of you coming. We're going to have quite an adventure today, and it's only the beginning of the adventure. I would also like to introduce Madeline. Madeline. Madeline is my partner, and we've been traveling the world, actually, putting out this information, and having our own adventures. Good ones and, well. But this is wonderful, and Madeline and I live in Sedona, in a beautiful place, a very sacred spot. Well, how many people have seen the video? 1, 2. That's okay. That's good. Just have to have some idea. How many people have studied something about the Mayan calendar already? 1 or 2 people. Oh, about half of you have seen something about the Mayan calendar. And I think that you're going to be a little surprised about today's talk. Let's get into it. Basically, what today's talk is going to be about is consciousness. Now, all of us, to one degree or another, I would imagine, have studied consciousness. And I'm sure that you have experienced lots of different definitions for the word consciousness. But we need to have one to work on, one that we agree on. And my definition of consciousness is the awareness of being aware. Whenever you catch yourself, whenever you notice yourself noticing something, there is your consciousness. In Sedona we have, and then here in Canada too, there are magnificent sceneries that take your breath away. And you go, wow, I'm really looking at this, aren't I? There. You're experiencing your consciousness. You're being aware that you're aware. Does that fit? Okay, good. That's consciousness. And mainly what we're going to be talking about today is consciousness and calendars. And what those two things have to do with one another. Consciousness and calendars. There's a very, very profound connection between the two that you haven't been privy to. This isn't part of your education. Well, here we go. Calendars. We got consciousness down. What is a calendar, though? A calendar is the absolute center of any civilization's consciousness. Absolutely everything that happens in a civilization and all references to what has happened before or what may come all exist on the calendar that civilization is using. Your birthday is a good start. That's on the calendar. Your due dates, your bill dates, your graduation times, all of the evaluation of how much your production is worth, everything is due to the calendar. Reference to the calendar. Absolutely everything that happens in our civilization happens in relation to the calendar. Can you see how the calendar is the center of a civilization's consciousness? I don't see too many nods out there yet. Is that making sense? Mm-hmm. That Okay. This is a two-way deal. Yes, you had a question?
No. I was just agreeing with you.
Agreeing. That's good. If you have a burning question, by the way, during this talk, if I say something that just doesn't fit, please raise your hand, stop me, and have me explain. This is not an exercise of me preaching or teaching to you. This is a communication exercise. Two-way street. My job is to impart this information and make it understood. Your job is to keep me doing that. Okay? All right. So, calendars. Calendars are the center of a civilization. And consciousness, I'm going to get back to these in just a minute. Consciousness always has an orientation. Always. It's located at all times. In our current civilization and our understanding, time and place are the orientation of your consciousness. Time and place. Time and place. Time is a consideration. You've probably already noticed this. Some afternoons are very long. Some evenings are very short. You understand it? Time is a consideration. It is flexible. Time is only an idea. But it is also an agreement in our calendar. It's an agreement of consideration. Yes? Okay. Time is an agreement between people. Place is an agreement. And every place holds different kinds of consciousness, doesn't it?
Yes.
Vancouver, the city of Vancouver, has a different consciousness than Vernon, doesn't it? And so does New York, and Los Angeles, and Paris, and Peking, China. All of those places have a different orientation to their consciousness. Just as different times have had a different orientation to consciousness. The 15th century consciousness is different than our current one. So these two considerations, time and place, are very, very pivotal to our whole existence. This is how consciousness and calendars, that agreement on what time it is, interact. And it goes deeper. We'll be going deeper into this. Time and place. Time and place. It's working right now. Some time ago, a very short time ago, you heard about this talk. And you considered that you would come. And ever since then, you've been handling all sorts of other considerations that have come up. Correct? And you held to your decision to be here, to your agreement of a place and time. And so here you are. Welcome. This is how it's always worked through your entire life. It has been time and place, time and place, time and place in every moment. So consciousness and calendars are very, very connected. this point right here, actually an infinitesimally small speck that is your consciousness. Of course, we know that it's not our body. It's not our mind. There is this consciousness, a spiritual essence, which does the considering of these things. That is that point. And what this is, another way of putting it, is this is your viewpoint. Your viewpoint is always established by these two, time and place. The location of that is always by these considerations. Yes?
What about your experience?
Excuse me?
What about your experience?
Experience. Well, then, when your consciousness is focused on the past, for instance, okay, well then you're looking at a different time. When you're that way, are you fully here? When you're doing that, no. Your consciousness is split.
Let me rephrase that, if I may. It's not a conscious thing, but we make decisions based on time and place by virtue of life experience.
Mm-hmm. Right. You're still in that time and place.
Mm-hmm.
Those considerations modify your choices, but you're always still here.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you split your consciousness, focusing more and more on the past rather than what's happening in the present. So this applies to your reveries as well as your physical condition. Okay? So this right here, your viewpoint, is sacred. Absolutely sacred. For only one reason. You're the only one who can have it. In all of creation, you individually are the only person who can have your viewpoint. Yes?
Does that make up reality?
Well, a conglomeration of it does. Just like you know that your body is made of trillions of cells. Each one is individual. Each one doing its own job. But it is a conglomerate. Your viewpoint is sacred. And nothing that we're saying today or this afternoon is meant to change your viewpoint. That is your job. What we're going to do today is we're going to feed your viewpoint. And you do with that information whatever you will. Okay? This is not something for you to believe in. Believing in this is useless. Knowing it is absolutely vital. Believing in it, no. Believing in me, no. Implementing this into your own viewpoint from your own point of view is very important. Now, our calendar is actually, we know the name of the calendar is the Gregorian calendar, right? This is the calendar that all business worldwide is run on. All business is conducted on the Gregorian calendar. That was actually put in place by Pope Gregory in 1582. And how many, I guess all of you have studied some history, and you know that the Gregorian calendar didn't go down very easily with indigenous populations around the planet. You see, the Gregorian calendar was put in 1582. There were lots of other calendars in existence for every other civilization. But when the Gregorian calendar was put in by the Catholic Church and the nobility of Spain, they had to kill a lot of people to get them to follow this calendar. That's curious. But everywhere they went, they planted the flag of whatever nation had conquered this continent, and then laid down the law of what day it was. Our calendar is based on this. I have fun doing this. I get to draw. There. That's our sun. And around the sun, here we are. Put some continents on here. And that's us. Around the sun goes the planet. Every 365 1/4 days. There. That's the way it is. Says Pope Gregory. This calendar measures the physical motion of our planet through space around our sun. And that is the center of our civilization's consciousness. Our civilization's consciousness is focused on the physical motion of an object around another physical object. Our whole concept of time in our civilization is the motion of physical things through space. So the whole of our civilization's consciousness is focused on physical evidence only. This is insidious. This is diabolical. This is a plan. Our whole civilization's consciousness is focused on physical because of our calendar. Remember, we used to have religious holidays, spiritual concepts. As a matter of fact, when the Gregory calendar went in, the first year on the Gregorian calendar was Year of Our Lord. 0001, Year of Our Lord. The next year was 002 of Our Lord. You go talking about 2004 of Our Lord, and people are going to look at you kind of weird. The whole concept that time has anything to do with spirituality has eroded, hasn't it? what used to be very sacred days, like Christmas. Now, a good Christmas is a lot of stuff sold to a lot of people, instead of things lovingly made by hand and bestowed with heart. Christmas has come down to a dollar sign. Easter. Remember Easter? The little baskets that you go out and hunt the eggs and all that. Now, Easter is just a marketing opportunity. Isn't it? What's happening here is not a mystery. What is happening is that our whole consciousness, by our calendar, is focused only on physical. Other civilizations, indigenous civilizations, had different kinds of calendars. Hardly any of them, especially the central calendars of civilizations, had to do with this orbit. The archaeologists who have studied ancient civilizations have found that there are many, many calendars, most of them having 360 days. The Tibetan calendar, the Chinese calendar, the Maori calendar, the Celtic calendar, the Hebrew calendar have 360 days. Not 365 and 1/4 days. Of course, we've been taught by our educational institutions that those poor primitive people just didn't have it. They just had an approximate solar year that they counted. And they were just too dumb to know the truth. Excuse me, but we're going to stand that on its head today. The Mayan calendar is one example of a different civilization. And they actually had a system of 2 calendars that worked together. One you may be familiar with. It's called the Zolkin. This means the count of days. Zol is count and kin is day. Zolkin is count of days. And it is a 260-day calendar. Now, that really threw these guys for a loop, these archaeologists. 260 days. Well, this calendar was the personal calendar of the Maya. It was also the astrological, which is how you probably heard about it. It was the astrological calendar of the Maya. So the archaeologists just pitched that over their shoulder. Astrology? Ha! Of course, they have no use for that. But we look at this personal calendar of the Maya. How personal can a calendar be? In this case, a person's first name, born as a Maya, was the day that they were born. Their first name. So it's not a nickname. My name would be 12 Ahau, Bahun Hun Ahau, Ian Lungold. And everybody who was born on the same day as me, on this 260-day calendar, would have the same name. We'd all be, if there was 100 people born that day, there would all be 12 Ahau. That's not so bad. There's a lot of Bobs and Sallys running around. It's going to work. The reason was because this 260-day calendar is made up of different energies. It's made up of 13 intentions that run 1 through 13, and then you start over. It goes 1 through 13 again, and it goes over again. And there's 20 aspects of creation that run over and over again in a pattern. 12 times 13, 13 times 20 equals 260. So there is a complete set of the 13 intentions repeated 20 times. Now, I saw some of you guys picking up this calendar, this Mayan calendar. The purpose of this is to help you to keep track of the intent and the aspect represented by creation of every single day.
Explain what today's means.
I will in just a moment. Now, this may not seem all that important. I'll get right to it. This is going to be more and more important as we go through today. The very first thing is that a Mayan person, goodbye water, the Mayan person born on a particular day was given the name of the intention and the aspect that they represent. Does it make sense to you that people have any choice on when they're born? Does it? It makes sense. Why would you pick a particular day to be born? More than likely because you liked it. More than likely because it matched up with what you intended to do with your lifetime. So the Mayan person who was born on a particular day knew, and everybody knew, why they showed up. What was their intention and what aspect of creation were they going to manifest during this lifetime? Wouldn't that have cut out a whole lot of trouble for us? To have some glimmer of why we're here? Yes. Yeah, for 5,000 years, the Maya ran their civilization centered on this information. Personally. The Maya celebrated every single day of their calendar as a sacred event. Every single day has an intention. And every single day has an aspect of creation. Today, for example, is 3 transformer, or 3 Kame, on the Mayan calendar. Anybody, well, I'll just tell you. The intention of 3. The intention of 3 is communication. Expressed as eloquence in art or writing. And Kame is the aspect of today. Kame means transformer or transformations. So today's purpose is the communication of transformation. You check it out.
Did you pick this day?
As a matter of fact, we did. Why not work with creation? Why not align your own lives and decisions and activities to the flow of creation? Yes?
This system may work very well in a tropical area where seasons don't alter quite so much as in the northern area.
Mm-hmm.
the 365 order days looks much more consistently in a more northern latitude, because we have to, for instance, agriculture depends a lot on having those days
Oh, yeah.
at those times.
As a matter of
It's
fact,
not work.
As a matter of fact, the Maya had a calendar, a 365-day calendar. You probably heard that the Maya had the most accurate calendar on Earth. Okay? Well, they knew perfectly well. It's called the Hab calendar. The Hab calendar, Hab means Earth. Hab is the Earth calendar. They knew within 8 seconds of exactly how long it took for us to go around. Within 8 seconds. But this calendar only had one purpose. Taxes. It was for bookkeeping only. They were an agrarian culture. When could they pay their tribute? When the crops came in. This was the only use for that calendar. The Zolkin was the personal calendar. It wasn't the bookkeeping calendar. This Zolkin calendar worked along next to another calendar that we're going to be talking mostly about today. You'll see this calendar woven in, but this is pretty much what we're going to be talking about. The Tun calendar, T-U-N, Tun. And this is the Maya 360-day calendar. Now, the Tun calendar was known as the divine or prophetic. The prophetic calendar. Maybe you've heard something about the Mayan prophecies and how phenomenally accurate they were over thousands and thousands of years, including today. How profoundly accurate these things were. Those prophecies were all based on the Tun calendar with the intentions and aspects of the Zolkin calendar. They work like this. This is the 260-day calendar, the Zolkin. This is the Tun calendar, the prophetic calendar. Now, each day on the Zolkin, there's 260 days, like teeth of a gear. And then there's 360 teeth on this gear. This Zolkin calendar revolves. And it makes that one move. This goes around and around with these repeated intentions and aspects, as you will see. I mean, they're actually this right here, that chart. If you can see it from up there, but this chart is the 260 days. And you'll see the pattern that runs over and over. As this repeats, it turns this bigger gear. So as this turns, it imparts these meanings to these days. Okay? Every 52 revolutions of this calendar, the two teeth that started out match back up. Every 52 revolutions of this, you get back to where you started. This is why a Mayan elder, or any North American elder, became an elder at 51 3/4 of our years. 52 revolutions of this. And a person became an elder and was then able to teach others. Up until that time, they were a student. They were an apprentice. No matter how accomplished physically, they were only a student. The reason is because they had not yet experienced all of the different energies of creation that could be presented. Not until they'd gone all the way around and they started all over. This time with experience. Then they were an elder. Those folks were pretty rare back then, by the way. People usually lived about 45 or so. Okay? To show you how important this calendar was to the Maya, just a demonstration. Every 52 tunes, every spark of every fire was put out across the whole civilization. Every single spark. No coal left. All debts were absolved. The whole civilization started all over. Can you imagine? Maybe you can since the blackout. Can you imagine our whole civilization shutting off every electron? No electricity for anything. Not even uses of batteries at all for one day. That's a pretty heavy commitment, don't you think? That's how much these people's lives were centered around their calendar. They knew the calendar was the center of their civilization. And they celebrated it every day. They still do, by the way. There are 8 million Maya alive and fairly well all over the Yucatan and Guatemala. They are not extincted like some people would like you to believe. And a small portion of those people actually still follow the calendar. Okay? So, 260 days and 360 days don't match up with any of our understanding of timekeeping. There's no planets or moons going around the solar system every 260 days. There's no planets or moons going around every 360 days either. The archaeologists were completely stumped. I mean, this was just mysticism to them. So they really didn't investigate it much. They just put it on the shelf. That's why it's been a mystery all this time. It wasn't until Carl Kalman, he's a biochemical engineer from Sweden. Carl Kalman started applying clinical science techniques to studying the Mayan calendar, to discover what were these guys timing. For 5,000 years to use this system? There must have been some reason. So he started applying. Archaeologists are not scientists. Archaeologists are people who study. That's what the word ology means. The study. Archaeology means the study of arches or architecture. Various forms. They don't use a scientific procedure. They write theses. They expound on ideas that are likely to gather together the funding for next year's project. So, this remained a mystery. And that book, by the way, is available on Amazon.com, and you can get it through B. Dalton Books, and you can order it.
What's the author's name?
And Dreamweaver will get in any books that you recommend, so
Oh,
it will
okay.
be available locally too.
Good. This book is scientific. It's
How do you
not a
spell it?
novel.
How do you spell his name, please?
Kalleman is Calleman. Kalleman. And yes.
And how do you figure out which day we're on? You said we're on the third day right now.
Oh, yeah.
How do you figure that out?
Well, the Maya know what day it is on their calendar.
And I will too if you show me. how to
Okay.
do it.
Yeah, I can do that really quick. Everybody that's got one of these, sounds like a prayer meeting. Open your hymn book. There are two charts right here. Okay, open it to these two charts. There's a red chart, red band across the top, and a blue down here. Anytime you want to look up a date, including today's date, or your birthday, or a future date, what you do is you look on the month and day chart, and you find the month you're in, and then you run down to the day. Okay? Today, September 6th. So, with my glasses on,
189.
189 is the value that's in the little box. Now, we go to 2003 on the year chart. Okay? And there will be another number there. It's actually 217. Now you just add those two numbers together. You get a calculator. Seriously, I use the calculator more often than a pencil for doing this. You add the two numbers together. Now, sometimes you're going to come up with a number larger than 260. Like today. You're going to have a number larger than 260. So what we go and do is we go all the way around on the calendar again. It's going to follow the same pattern. So what you do is you subtract 260 from that total. Okay? If it's a big number bigger than 260, then you just subtract 260. The remainder will be a number of the day on this chart. Then you go to the next, whatever that number is. And today, being 3 transformer, is day number 146. Okay? You find the day and the month. There's a little red number. You write that down, you add it together, then you go down here, you'll find a little blue number on the year. You add them together. If it's over 260, subtract 260 and use the remainder. If it's not over 260, then you've already got your number.
Figure out January, February.
Yes. Now there is one little wrinkle in this, and it's in the instructions. There are 4, count them, 4 instructions at the beginning of this. And in the second instruction, it says, if you were born, or if you're looking up a January or February month, use the year value of the previous year. Example, if you were born on January 26, 1949, then you would actually look up January 26, 1948, and add those numbers together. The reason, although that might sound complicated, it's a lot easier to do that than figure out all the leap years. Okay? So we skipped over a huge problem of leap years by starting our count on March 1st rather than January 1st. So February and January on this are counted as You see, I don't care about calendars. I don't care about rules. I'll break them every time. If it'll help. And in this case, it did. We just took the Mayan calendar and stretched it over this way, and took the Gregorian calendar, stretched it over the Mayan, and now it works. Later today, we're going to do that again. I mean, that's how I came up with this. I was the inventor of this, and that's how I came up with it, and I did it again. And you guys are going to be some of the first to know about this, too. So, and whoever watches the tape. Okay, so we now have the Zolkeen and the tune. Any other questions about this right away? Is that pretty clear? I mean, I know it's different than how we do it, but it's just, well, it's mechanical, really. It just goes and runs. So what were these guys timing? Big mystery. Let's talk about it. If that looks like a pyramid to you, good. It's a 9-level pyramid. Just like that one. You guys seen Chichen Itza? Okay, it's 9 levels. All of the Mayan pyramids are either 5 or 9 levels for a very specific reason. They were ceremonial centers. And the ceremonies and rituals that were done there were done to help demonstrate to the populace the perceptions or the considerations of their civilization about the calendar or about creation. It was their cosmology, built in huge piles of stone. The Mayan calendar, in 1940 something, there was a discovery made at a place called Coba. And Coba is a city in the Yucatan. And I hope you can you focus that camera in a little, one of them, on this picture? I'll hold it as still as I can. So
If we can't, we can get it afterwards.
Okay.
Got it.
Do you? Thank you. This is the edge of one stone standing in Coba. Actually, it was found laying face down in the jungle. Had been there for centuries. And when they stood it up, the archaeologists did a rubbing of all the detail, all of the writing that was on it. Thank goodness they did. Because within a couple of years, most of the detail had eroded away. Madeline and I have stood right by this stone, and you can't really read it anymore. But when they first stood it up, they got good, crisp detail. And all of this writing here, these are time periods written in Mayan language. And this was the key that unlocked most of the Mayan calendar. We knew the structure of the calendar from this picture. What it says is that there are 9 different levels of creation or consciousness that exist or that will exist. Starting 16.4 billion, that's billion with a B, billion years ago. And this really threw the archaeologists off. What were little brown Indians in the jungle making pots? Thinking about numbers of 16 billion. It just didn't make any sense to them. Because after all, they were so primitive. 16.4 billion years ago is when the Maya say this physical universe began. Well, that doesn't line up with astronomers, does it? Astronomers, some 45 years ago, 50 years ago, had it down. somewhere between 10 and 20 billion years ago, the universe started. Then, as we got better telescopes, so we could see further and further out, it moved from 10 to 20 to, well, maybe 12 to 20. Then we put up Hubble, and it went to 14 billion years ago that the universe started. You know what? I'll bet you that within the next couple of years, they're going to find out that the Maya, some 2,500 years ago, had it right to begin with. The Big Bang happened 16.4 billion years ago. Now, this cycle has a name. It was named by Carl Koloman, not by the Maya. The Maya, although they had the pattern, never had all the facts that we're going to be talking about. Consciousness is evolving through these different stages. And they were at a particular stage that didn't have all the information we now can display. But this cycle, all the cycles actually, are named for their product, what that cycle produced. This one is called the cellular cycle. Because way at the very end of this cycle is when life started. You notice these numbers down here at the bottom? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, to each level of this consciousness, there is 7 periods of day and 6 periods of night. 6 or 7 days to each level of creation. Where have we heard this before?
The Bible.
As a matter of fact. And before the Bible was written, before it was written in Hebrew, it was actually, the stories were written in Sumerian. In fact, the whole Bible is a rewrite. It's plagiarism with a little bit of inventive editing thrown in here and there. The Sumerians, the first people to write, some of the first things they wrote was that there were 7 days and 6 nights in each level of creation. So the Maya were not the only people to have this information. They were only the most recent ancient civilization. They left the freshest tracks, which is what Carl picked up on and then I picked up on, and here we go. Each one of the days has a particular intention, as well as each one of the nights. I didn't put the numbers into the nights, but it's just first day, first night. Second day, second night. Third day, third night. This is 13 sections, friends. 1 through 13. All of the intentions. Okay? This cycle started with the Big Bang here and went through all of these stages of consciousness. 16.4 billion years divided by 13 is 1.26 billion years to each day. And 1.26 billion years to each night. Now that's a long night. I want to make a kind of not a warning, but a notice to everyone. While we're talking about these huge time scales, it's very likely that you'll start feeling heavy and more or less sleepy. That's because our consciousness thinks that time is physical. So I just stacked 16 billion years on your head. years ago on this planet. The first cellular life. That's what happened. So this is called the cellular cycle. We are later in today, we're going to be going through more of the detail of this. Okay, the next cycle started 820 million years ago. Again, the Maya knew how many tunes each of these cycles were, but they didn't have all the science that we now have available. This cycle is called the mammalian. The mammalian cycle, because its product was mammals. We went through the individual cell, starting to join up with other cells in cooperation for survival. Individual cells happen here, right at that line. 1.26 billion years ago. But life scientists know that 820 million years ago, individual cells started clumping together to become eventually plants early on in this cycle. And then to become crustaceans, and then to become fishes, and then to become reptiles, and then to become dinosaurs, and then to go completely extinct and leave the mammals standing 63.4 million years ago. Which just happens to be what 820 divided by 13 is. Coincidence. It's going to get a lot better. $41 million years ago, we started the next cycle. Now remember, these things are written as numbers of tunes carved in stone 2,500 years ago. This 41 million years ago is an approximation of how many tunes. We started the family or familiar cycle. Now this is a huge step in consciousness. 40 million years ago is when monkeys showed up. And they developed a different kind of consciousness than had ever existed before. The consciousness of family. Now, all the way up until this, we had a particular tool for survival. And that was the grouping. Individual cells grouping together into life forms, and then those life forms grouping together for survival into nests and swarms and flocks and schools and herds. But here comes another consciousness. That is the consciousness of the individual. It is that consciousness of individual that creates a family. A closer cooperation. A closer or more involved responsibility. In a herd or a nest or a swarm, you're just one of the numbers. But a family consciousness is an interpersonal relationship. Recognized. It's a higher level of consciousness and organization. Can you see that? Actually, it started here, but it didn't really come about fully. It was developed over this 41 million years up to 3.2 million years ago. That's when it was fully established. Next cycle started 2 million years ago. beginning of what's called the tribal cycle. Yes?
Well, the 41 divided by 13, does that equal the 3.2?
No, it's actually, yes, excuse me, 3.2 million years, yes. Each one of the days and nights was 3.2 million years. Yes?
I can see, like, okay, started at 16.4.
820 million.
Well, okay,
Huh?
but so it started 16.4 million years ago, and each billion, and each day was 1.26 billion,
Uh-huh.
and each night was 1.26 billion. So if we take, okay, I see where we get the 820. I couldn't figure out where the 820 came from, but
Okay.
as I was asking my question, the answer came.
Let me make this really clear right here. We're still living in this 1.26 billion years. That consciousness, cellular consciousness, is still going on, isn't it? You want to test it? Pinch yourself. I felt that. The physical being registered that. That is cellular consciousness. Ow! Or ooh. It's still running. Okay? Here, this 820 million years, we're still living in this 63.4 million years. Are you mammals? Were you live birth with the placenta and everything? Then this is still working. This family relationship, this individual recognition, it's still operating. We're still living in this 3.2 million years. These are all found like a wafer, and foundations like a wafer of consciousness that is building and building, and we're going to see some special stuff. This tribal cycle started 2 million years ago. Now, the Maya didn't know that Lucy showed up 2 million years ago. We know that Lucy, that's Australopithecus, showed up 2 million years ago. A tailless ape. Our most distant, more or less direct ancestor. Showed up 2 million years ago. Coincidence? Oh, probably. These 2 million years are divided by 13, 160,000 years to each day and night. So each one of these intentions lasted for 160,000 years, then it went to another intention, and that intention carried forward. And that intention were the steps of evolution. Consciousness, there is, I think everybody agrees here, there's a cascade of event. And it goes like this. It goes consciousness first, light second, thought, then manifestation. Consciousness, light, thought, manifest. These are the intents of creation that are followed by the light that becomes the thought that then becomes physically manifest. Okay, here's the next cycle started 102,000 years ago. That weight's getting lighter, isn't it? 102,000 ain't so bad. This is called the cultural cycle. Because this 102,000 years brought about our cultures. 8,000 years. Every 8,000 years, there was a change of intention. Here, in in 3115 BC, that's about 5,116 years ago, we started a new cycle called the national consciousness. As an interesting coincidence, that line right there is the birth of Egypt, where King Minos married the upper and lower Nile cultures into the first nation. First idea of nation. And these stages changed every 400 years. Actually, every 397 years, but I rounded it up. Every 400 years, people change their minds. I mean, you realize that back in this time period, everybody wore the same style of clothes, drove the same style of car, ate off the same pattern of pottery for 400 years before it changed. You talk to an archaeologist, they'll tell you all about this. That's their job, is counting pots. And what date that pot came from is due to the pattern. And they only change once every 400 years. Everybody, grandpa, dad, mom, sister, brother, all thought the same way. There was not the diversity that we have today. Planetary cycle. (1755) is when it started. AD. The planetary cycle. And its time scale, all of these different individual intentions, changed every 19.7 years. This was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And since things have changed every 20 years or so, we are still living in these 20 years. The galactic consciousness started January 5th, 1999. January 5th, 1999 was that line right there. And now, these consciousnesses are shifting every 360 days.
And they do, you can feel it.
Of course you can. The next cycle, the last cycle, the universal cycle, will start February 10th, 2011. This whole cycle will be 260 days long. The whole cycle.
Can you repeat that, when that starts?
The universal cycle starts February 10th, 2011. And it runs for a total of 260 days, right up to October 28, 2011. October 28, 2011. That is when all of these cycles, this one and this one and this one and this one and this one, all come to some sort of an end. And you're not leaving here without knowing what's going to happen.
Thank you.
In general. You're all individuals. You have to keep that into perspective. During this cycle, the same amount of changes that are changing every 360 days will be changing in every 20 days. And you got the overall idea here. There seems to be some sort of an acceleration. I want to go through, now that we've got the general idea, I want to go through this one more time and give you a little bit more detail. Okay? I'm going to get a different color pen and everything. Here we go. Let's take a look at what these intentions actually mean or how they manifest. And we're not going to go through them all because that we'd be here until next week. But what we will do, read the book. Please, read the book for further detail. It's all there. We're just going to scratch the surface, okay? Cellular cycle. This whole deal, by the way, is sort of like it's like a semi-truck. Like a big triple semi-truck. You ever seen those? What are they hauling in that? Potato chips? I mean, 3 trailers. Looks like a mini train going down the road. Well, okay. Here's all of creation sitting in a parking lot, fully loaded in 3 trailers or so. Well, you start off slow, don't you? You start off slow, and you get going faster and faster, and then pretty soon, you get going as fast as you can in first gear. Then what do? You shift. Actually, the first thing you do is you put in the clutch. And then you reach for another gear. And then you let the clutch back out. And you keep accelerating. Right? Okay. Well, here you start off dead slow. And you go faster and faster and faster and faster, all the way up until the 5th day. Now, on the 5th day, you're going as fast as you can possibly go in this gear. That's when the clutch goes in, during the 5th night. Then you reach for a new gear. Then you let the clutch back out. Then you accelerate in the next gear. Does that make sense? Okay, now let's look at how this goes. We'll just talk about the 5th day, because the 5th day is really dramatic in all these cycles. Here we are. This is the 5th day of the cellular cycle. Now, this is 6.5 billion years ago or so. And what was happening right then is the development of our solar system. It was the birthday of our solar system. And right here, during the 5th night, this is about 5 to 4.5 billion years ago or so, something very special happened. We got a delivery. We had over 250 million years of meteor bombardment. All the leftover space junk in our system that was anywhere in our path, boom, a-bam, was hitting every planet in the solar system. The moon still has all of its craters because it doesn't have enough atmosphere to erode them away. We can still see the craters on Earth, but they're heavily eroded. During this 250 million years, it was not a life-friendly place to live. In fact, there wasn't any water here. Remember, this planet was formed from a mass of seething gases that became more and more solid into a core, and then a cooled mantle. Okay? Every drop of water was brought in chunks of ice in meteors. Every drop. I mean, 250 million years of meteor bombardment sounds like a pretty violent thing. But if it hadn't happened, your bodies would be about this big. Because you're mostly water. So, good deal that happened. I mean, it looks traumatic, but that's a good deal. I'll just do a thing like that so you know it's the night. Okay, during the 5th day of the mammalian cycle, some 315 million years ago is when that started. 315 million years ago. What happened here was that life moved out of the oceans onto the land. During that 63.4 million years, we know when it happened. We have the paleontological records. It happened right then, and life moved out of the oceans onto the land. That's a pretty big deal, isn't it? It's a big change in consciousness. Right here, during the 5th night, was the Perm-Jurassic extinction period. 97% of all of life was eradicated from the planet. 97%. All that was alive were little squiggly worms at the bottoms of the oceans. That was it. Quite a party, huh? This 5th night. Wow. When you put that clutch in, anything can happen. You guys all driven in snow with standard transmissions, right? You got all this massive momentum going, and then you just go ahead and just push in that clutch. When that clutch goes in, anything can happen. During the 5th day of the family cycle, life scientists believe that that's when color vision came in. When organisms developed eyes that would actually register color. We don't know what happened here. We don't know. But evidently the little monkeys made it, or we wouldn't be standing here. So, the 5th night, something happened. We don't know. In the tribal cycle, during the 5th day, which was 800,000 years ago, something extremely important came to mind. Fire. All over the world, within 2,000 years, archaeologists find the same thing when they're digging down. Get down to 800,000 years ago, they find a fireplace in every inhabitation, within a couple of thousand years. You've heard of the 100th monkey syndrome? Well, here it was. Demonstrated. People on completely different continents were developing fire. All during that consciousness cycle of the 5th day. It's a good thing they did, too, because right after that, this is 640,000 years ago, we had the Ice Age. And I guess fire had something to do with us still being here.
Yeah. And what was the 5th night of the 3rd cycle? How long ago was that when we don't know what happened?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't have it written down. I'd have to do the math in my head. So I'm not confident. Let's see. Just go 1, 2, 3, 4 times 325. 3,000 is 15 million, almost 16 million years ago. So, the cultural cycle. In the cultural cycle, the fifth day was 40,000 years ago. $40,000 years ago was another huge development in consciousness. Art. Now, 40,000 years ago, art was not for decoration. Art had a very, very special meaning. Art was actually sacred. Art was the first attempt of consciousness to create the future. Art was the first contemplation of a future. A caveman wore a claw of a bear that he and his friends killed, I guess. Or maybe he just found it dead. But he wore that as a totem, as a symbol. Now, what does that symbol apply to? His past? Or future exploits? The cave paintings on the wall. The cave paintings were prayers. They were done by shamans. They were predictions of good hunts. The effigies of women, you've seen some of the first little statuary. Very pregnant, right? Was that carved or molded for the past? Or was it representing the future? Indeed it was. Art, this point in consciousness, the fifth day of the cultural cycle, was the beginning of our contemplation of a thing called future. Big deal. Now, the fifth night, started 32,000 years ago. And what happened 32,000 years ago is that the Neanderthal went extinct. Neanderthal got off the bus. Does anybody know why they left? I do. And so do our friends, the archaeologists. I mean, they've been doing their job. They've been studying stuff. The archaeologists have determined why the Neanderthal went extinct. In over 100,000 years, they never, ever changed. They made the same tools, had the same clothing, lived in the same caves, in the same valley, chased the same bison for 100,000 years. They never changed. Take a clue. Neanderthal went extinct because they didn't adapt.
I thought they were left over from another more developed place, and they had they were just generating more and more from a higher point of civilization before, right?
Well, those are thoughts. What we can determine, though, is that they didn't interact, and they didn't develop their own methods. While Cro-Magnon, on the other hand, our direct ancestor, was developing all sorts of tools and methods, tracks, as a matter of fact. He was wandering, didn't stay in the same place, went to all kinds of environments, and made it with everything he found, including the Neanderthal. Which is why there's still a little of that noise. Cro-Magnon survived because of his adaptability. Neanderthal just didn't keep pace. And this is something that the archaeologists probably, I don't know, they don't have their schedule, so they don't know. But really, what really did it was that these guys did not have, for whatever reason, they did not have the capacity to envision a future. They didn't make art. They copied beads and things, but they didn't create it. They were missing that link. Sort of like criminals today. The thing that determines the difference between a person who can be criminal and one who's not going to be is their ability to predict the future. A person who cannot imagine being caught can go right ahead and commit the crime. Other people who can fully imagine that, I might leave some clues, or somebody might see me, and that would be a bad future. People who can consider that don't do the deed. Yes?
They buried their dead with red ochre and with artifacts, and they also had skulls that they created in caves. And I mean, that's a form of prayer. I mean, they really are considered, when I studied archaeology and anthropology, to be the first to have come up with any form of prayer.
Well, as a matter of fact, it was only after interaction with Cro-Magnon that they started doing it. It wasn't something they came up with.
But if they're practicing that, that's not necessarily a reason for them to become extinct.
Yeah, it is. I mean, individuals were doing that and copying, but not the vast civilization, not the vast number of people. It's sort of like, here you guys are, learning new information. Not everybody in town is here. There's only a few individuals who are leading the way. Those were more likely the people who were also boinking with the Cro-Magnon. What's the fastest way to learn a new language? Go get a boyfriend or girlfriend who speaks that language. Yes?
I was just going to say, though, but I mean, even because I studied about Neanderthal too, I wrote a paper, but since these steps are all progressive and there is a purpose obviously behind that, that some groups would fade out or intermix and dissipate just like they will now and they will in the future. Because I'm here, well, actually that's why I'm here, because I have predictions about the future that I had when I was younger, that I wanted to see how much the Mayan calendar was very similar to mine, and your date is almost identical within, I didn't date mine to a month, but it's the same year, same time.
Got it.
So
this is, all of us are sharing a consciousness, and we're all receiving this information. It's not a mystery.
no.
We're not unveiling anything that you don't really already, well, you're just remembering.
That's it.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yes?
It just really kind of occurs to me as well as you move up and so on and so forth, that it's almost as though each step would be predetermined.
Exactly. It's sort of like a football game. It's predetermined it's going to be so long. You know?
Yeah.
You got so many minutes in each quarter, and inside that, you can do as much fantastic stuff as you like. But there is an end to the game. That doesn't preclude your own creation. It doesn't limit in any way your style or your ability. There is just a limited space of time to produce that or perform that stuff. Let's go up here to the next one. 3115 BC, beginning of the national cycle. Now we're getting into history. This is all prehistory. Actually, this is her story. His story started right here. This is all Mother Earth. This is all man. This line not only is the beginning of the national cycle, but it's also when we started writing. When we started to write. 3110, actually, in Sumerian cuneiform and Egyptian hieroglyphics. Started right there. Here, at 40 AD, is this line. 40 AD. What was happening 40 AD? There was a guy by the name of Paul who had a passion about a guy named Christ, who he was just prior to this period of time. But it's not the event, it's the consciousness that we're counting here. Okay? And what happened during this period of time, this 400 years, right at the beginning of this, is when Paul brought forward the message of Christ. Christ only talked to 2,000 people in his lifetime. But Paul and the other disciples that came after him espoused his message. And his message, his consciousness was that he brought forward during that fifth day was that all of you, every single one of you, are divine. You are the sons and daughters of God. And you don't need no king or priest to do your talking to you or for you. To God. It's your deal. That's what he said. You see, at the time, the civilization at the time was all ruled by gods here on earth. Caesar was a god. And Caesar laid down the rule of God on everyone. And Christ said, don't you listen to that. That's this world. That's limited. You're not. And his message was so powerful that by 411 AD, Rome had fallen. During the fifth night. The emperor just couldn't keep it up anymore. It wasn't anything he did. He was just doing the same stuff. Conquer, divide, dominate, just doing the same stuff. What changed was the public's consciousness. Take a clue. What changed was the backing of that kind of thinking that this person is divine and I'm not. This person can't bleed and I can. That went away. And they lost their power. And it fell apart. Here, during the planetary cycle, the fifth day. Remember, the fifth day is a tremendous opening for consciousness. Tremendous. Wide open opening. As fast as it can go. What happened? 1913 was the publication of somebody's works. A guy that came up with E equals mc squared. During the fifth day of that consciousness cycle, we received a gift. We received the blueprint of our reality. E equals mc squared. And then right down the very center of this, right in the middle of that day, 1924, another guy by the name of Hubble made a discovery. You've heard about his telescope. But the reason that was named after this guy is because he discovered that we live in an infinite universe. And in an infinite universe, absolutely everything is possible. In an infinite universe, nothing is impossible. Everything exists. Everything and anything you can possibly imagine, and much more than that. Already, factually, is the fact. So during this period of time, we got the blueprint of our reality and the knowledge that everything is possible. That's a pretty big opening for consciousness, isn't it? And then we went ahead, and you see the nights are more or less a time to apply. The days are times to have realizations or grow in understanding. And then the nights are times to use that understanding. So we got this wonderful understanding, and then we went over here, and the night started 1932. During the night, we applied this understanding in an exercise we call World War II. And in World War II, we did a lot of waste of people, materials. We even blew off the atomic bomb and brought upon our consciousness the weight, the responsibility that we could be the last. That's been a heavy weight, folks. We've all grown up our whole lives with that responsibility. I don't want to point something out. It's very, very important. Yes, we blew off the atomic bomb and caused terrible destruction all over the world, mostly in Europe. But we brought a heavy responsibility on ourselves, yes. But that certainly isn't 200 million years of meteor bombardment, is it? As a matter of fact, World War II did not make 97% of all life go extinct, did it? Now, as much as, the physicists thought maybe blowing off these bombs would bring on a nuclear winter. They were talking about that before they even blew them up. Didn't happen. Here we had an ice age. It didn't happen. As much as Hitler hated the Jews and tried to exterminate them, they did not go the way of Neanderthal, did they? When the Third Reich fell, there wasn't 30 years of war that raged across Europe like when Rome fell, was there? In other words, fellows, things are getting better. Lots better. Remember when you were trying to ride a bike? Wobble, wobble, boom. Wobble, wobble, boom. Until you got some momentum, you really didn't find your balance. It was after you had some experience that you could then start to steer and avoid those bushes and that gate or that hole or rock. It took a while, as it's taken us a while. Now, we're down here at 11:30. Does everybody feel like taking a break right here and come back? No? You want to go on just a little bit more? Okay. Then
Do you need one?
What's the vote?
Do you need one?
Okay, we all stay.
What do you need to?
I don't need a break.
I have 15 minutes of tape.
15 minutes?
15 minutes? You want?
No, take a break.
Okay, we'll go some more. Yeah, we'll go to the
Don't do that.
Now, things are demonstratively getting better for consciousness. Well, we still have that responsibility. But that responsibility is to grasp the handlebars, because we found them now, and keep your eyes open. Won't work. We are now in this galactic cycle. And this galactic cycle, we're actually in the third day of this galactic cycle. We're going to be talking a lot more in depth about this later this afternoon, what these actual things mean. But I want to go through this in general, what these different levels of consciousness are. And when I get up to the top, then we'll take a break. Okay? First, consciousness of cellular cycle. Each one of these has a particular mode or a flavor of consciousness that it runs on. In this case, the cellular thing started out with just gases and with atoms and electrons banging into one another and coalescing and all of that, right? Light becoming physical, becoming gaseous, becoming solid. All of this whole cycle is built around, it's all built around action, reaction. All the physical laws, all the chemical laws were developed and laid down during this 16.4 billion years. And of course, they still apply today. The mammalian cycle was a consciousness that was built on or developed something called stimulus, response. You see how that's different than action-reaction? There's more consciousness in it. Action-reaction. Boom, boom. Stimulus, response. It's not in the same direction. It can be in a different direction. In fact, usually is. A rabbit in the thicket, snap, the rabbit's gone. He gets a stimulus, boom, out of it. Okay? That was a survival mechanism that all of these organisms used. Here, in the family division, and family cycle, there was a new development on this, which was stimulus, individual, response. You startle a school of fish, and what does it do? It turns on a dime. The whole 300 fish, pitoom, they all move as a group. You stand back, a big tree full of monkeys, and you stand back and you throw a banana up into the tree. You're going to have a bunch of individual responses, aren't you? Some monkey might chase the banana, peel it, and throw the skin back at you. Others might get freaked out and run away. Others chatter and chatter. It's all individual. Individual responses. From there, we moved up to the tribal cycle. And 2 million years ago, we put down the tail and picked up another tool. The tail was a tool for survival. We put that down, and we picked up something else called the mind. And the mind is based on, or this whole cycle is based on, a consciousness of similarity and different. And it's from that you get the ability to make decisions. And that's what this was about. Decisions. Seeing the similarity or the differences. Yes, this is a similar situation, but it calls for a different response. Got it? It's not just stimulus response. Now, it's stimulus, observation, decision, action. People started making decisions during this period of time. Here, in the cultural cycle, the culture, the basis of all culture, is reasons. Reasons. Shared reasons. At the beginning, this was the province of Shaman in the caves. Believe me, it was started here in the caves. Shaman were the people who came up with the reason for stars, the reason for fire, the reason for rain, the reason that the bear came into the camp that night. Reason, which is the basis of cosmology, which evolved further into priests and priesthoods and religions, all the base of culture. Down here, people were huddled together for survival. Down there in this. But here, people were grouped by their shared reason for survival. It was here that people developed style. Their own particular style of survival. Due to the reason of their existence. Obviously we still have this going on. There are people over in the Middle East who have decided that their reason is better than anybody else's. Not a good decision, but it's one that's been made. This, frankly, is headed straight for extinction. Like the dinosaurs, Neanderthals. That kind of reasoning has been far past by consciousness. And we're witnessing that right now. We're witnessing the extinction of one reason being any more valid than any other. So cultures and religious organizations are in turmoil, in crisis right now. And they will be passing soon. We'll talk more about it later this afternoon. The national cycle. The national cycle right here is all about law. And
what's that word?
punishment. Law and punishment. Down here, there was only reasons for things. There was not any good or evil. There were certainly consequences. But there wasn't the concept of good and evil. That came in right here, 3115 BC, which is just about 400 years from when the Hebrew Bible was supposedly written, which starts out with the story of Adam and Eve and the concept of good and evil was injected into our consciousness. And the idea of retribution, eye for an eye. Before that, down here, during this whole 102,000 years, there weren't police forces to go out and rally up people who had clubbed somebody in the head the night before. It was expected that sooner or later that person would get clubbed in the head or fall off a cliff. There was a natural balance. And there wasn't a need at that time or an ability for law. It was during this period of time that we developed that whole idea of law. And it's just in this last 400 years that we've discovered the laws of science, the laws of physics. All of our great advances are because of our understanding of the laws, the principles behind the manifestations. And it happened during this seventh day. You see. The planetary cycle is all about power. That's what this consciousness is all about. Here it was about law. Here, power. 1755, we developed machines to do the work of men, to do the work of thousands of men. Power. Now, consciousness has no good or evil in it. It doesn't have any judgment. It just exists. So there is no good power and bad power. There is only the availability of it. Now, in our perspective, it sure looks like some people have gathered unto themselves more power than they deserve. Or know what to do with constructively. Isn't that right? But to consciousness overall, big deal. The power's there. Well, let me bring it down to a personal level. In 1755, if you had a horse, well, at least you could get around. You could get there, and probably back. If you had 2 horses, maybe 3, you had a business. Because you could be hauling other people's stuff for them. If you had 25 horses, 30 horses, you were a very powerful individual. All of you have at least 180 horses in your driveway. Knowledge is power, right? Back here, no one could read, essentially. It was just the royalty that could read, that could have any knowledge. Now, with or without a computer, because there's ones at the library. You can go in moments, be finding out the fact about anything you want. Knowledge is power. You have ready access to all of it.